Okay, so you're all here because you want a view like this, right? That actually was my view for a week. Everyone wants an office like this. I understand. It's very romantic, I suppose. It's this beautiful life that we all want to live. I've actually been living it for 8 years. And honestly, this is kind of more like what it's like, I gotta tell you. It's a little insane. Your office is not always the beach. In fact, many times it's the floor in the middle of the Gobi Desert, in a car, in the middle of hiking the Camino de Santiago. And this was an Airbnb experience, which is a whole story in and of itself if you want to come and talk to me about it. But it was really fun, too. Anyway, so that's kind of the reality. I know everyone's kind of trying to go, oh, how can I work on the road and be location independent? You know, there are a million different ways to do it. I think, you know, I've been able to cobble together a living for 8 years doing this. And I think the one thing is, many times we think this is the only thing, ESL or blogging. And I do both, I do have to say that. But it's not. One of the coolest things is, I think once you get on the road, and you just have to trust me on this, and I think any of the speakers would agree with me, once you get on the road, you will open up to a whole bunch of possibilities that you had no idea were there, that you're capable of, that you probably didn't even know that you had those capabilities, as well as just opportunities out there. I know I worked for 14 years in IT project management here, New York, San Francisco, wherever. And I firmly believed that I was only an IT project manager. I didn't even think I could do project management in another industry, honestly. Like, that was my box I was in, and I felt very stuck, which is why I took a career break. And then I realized, holy heck, I can actually do all kinds of stuff. And now I do travel writing, and I do photography, and I teach, and I consult, and I help run Facebook pages and do marketing and all kinds of stuff. So my world has opened up completely. So these are the two biggies. How many people here are interested in ESL? Okay, anyone interested in blogging? I'm just trying to figure out if I need to go through it. Okay, I'm gonna be kind of quick because these are both big juicy subjects. Let's first talk about ESL. So the first most confusing thing is this, right? CELTA, TEFL, TESOL, what the hell are they all, and do I need certification? These are all, well, these are types of certification. Basically, the one thing to know, I'm just going to keep it really simple. TEFL, TESOL, TESOL, it's all just teaching English to foreigners, okay? CELTA is actually kind of like a brand name. They've done a really good job of branding TEFL, okay? That's all. These are all, and the question is, do you need certification? I know that came up with Rolf. You still don't have to have it. It certainly helps these days, though, without a doubt. So CELTA, just to compare the two so you can kind of understand, I actually took a CELTA course. CELTA is basically accredited by Cambridge University, which is kind of where they get their branding. It takes 4 weeks full time in a classroom, like studying with teachers and then teaching in the afternoon. It is serious stuff. It was a full month. It costs somewhere, it's more expensive. It costs a little bit between $1,500 to $3,500. I think here in New York, I spent about $3,000, but that was 6 years ago. Prerequisites, you actually have to take a test and interview to get into the program. It's much more serious stuff. You have to, in order to pass, you have to have 6 hours of teaching in front of real students, not actors, and 4 written assignments. And I will tell you, in the program, it's way more than 6 hours in front of students. So, and it's audited by an external assessor from Cambridge. So that's kind of where they get their higher quality branding from and the higher price tag, honestly. There's a lot of consistency to that brand. Whereas this other side, there's a lot more variation. Not that it's worse at all. There are plenty of people that get these certifications and teach anywhere in the world. So it's just up to you. Some are accredited, some not. Sometimes it varies from a week to a month. Normally it's around 100 plus hours of instruction, but like CELTA is way more than that. Like I said, it was a full month. $200 to $4,000. It's more on the lower side, though, I would say. Prerequisites, sometimes, it depends on the company that's doing it. The coursework varies. and it's sometimes audited. So you can see it's just, it depends on what company you may go with, basically. And you just have to kind of look at all those things and see what fits you. I will also say that the CELTA, you don't have to do it all in a month. They have part-time programs too for people who work, so you can do it at night. It just takes much longer, obviously. 2 places that I highly recommend. I took mine at Teaching House here in New York City. They have outlets, though, all over the US now. I think when I took it, it was only New York, but now they're all over: Boston, San Francisco, Chicago. Very well respected. They're located across the US. You get that in-person training, obviously, and they have job guidance after the fact. So a big database of jobs and stuff like that, which is kind of how I found my original job. Also on the TEFL side, International TEFL Academy, very well respected. And they've got all kinds of different options. You can do online, you can do in-person, there's international courses, and they also have job guidance. So if you go to either one of those websites, you'll find out a lot more. So some tips based on my experience. Online versus classroom, you've got to figure out for yourself what you'd prefer. I'm one of these really anal people who I want to know that I can do it. So I wanted that classroom experience. I had no idea if I could teach. I'd never done anything like that before, but pretty quickly I realized it was kind of like running meetings in my old job, honestly. So it came quite naturally to me, so that was good. The biggest thing, when I first decided I was going to do this, I'm like, oh, I'm a writer, this is great, I'll learn all my grammar now. No, these classes are not about grammar. I learned my grammar, honestly, the 2 hours before I was going to teach the class every day. But it's not going to teach you all the different tenses, and it's not about that. It's about how to manage a classroom and how to teach, which is really good skills to have, honestly. Also, things to think about. Do consider taking a course internationally may be cheaper. So just be aware that if you know that you want to go teach English in Vietnam, and you know that you want to get a CELTA certification, you also may want to look into the fact that in Vietnam, there are schools that offer CELTA certifications that are probably half the cost of taking it here in New York. And you can probably turn around and work at one of their schools, because they're a combination language school and certification business, whatever you want to call it. So there are those things, and you'll find them all over. You want to go teach in Costa Rica, but you don't have your certification, check into where you can get certification down there if that's the case, and then just turn around and work there if you want. So good options for saving a little bit of money if you know kind of what you want to do. It's really nice when you can go to a place that helps you find work after certification. It helps. Teaching business English, way more lucrative. Okay, so if you do have that background and skill, not even skill, I just worked in business, so it kind of came naturally to me to talk to people. When I went to Vietnam, I started teaching at a school, and I ended up making all kinds of connections and teaching business professionals, actually at a factory, and going out on my own and making double the money, basically. Private tutoring, also a good way to make money once you have that certification. You can put up flyers around, normally even around the schools, they'll let you do that, and you can teach on your own time too and make more money. You don't have to teach kids. So like me, honestly, I didn't want anything to do with teaching kids. Just not my bag. So I said to them when I hired on, I'm like, look, I don't want to teach kids, young adults, great, business people, great. And that's what they kept me to. So it's possible, you're not pigeonholed into that. And one way to kind of research what this is all about, what you can actually make, that kind of stuff, because it varies a lot from the country. TEFL.com, I signed up. If you actually just go on that site, there's a whole bunch of information about job searching, but there's also a kind of a daily RSS mail feed that you can sign up for, and it comes out every day and lists by country ESL teaching jobs that are open. And it's mainly these big schools that are looking for teachers, but you can look on there and kind of see what the rates are that they're paying. You can see where the demand is. Middle East is good for demand. But you can also, so you can just kind of get educated at that's kind of how I decided Vietnam, honestly. So some good resources. Blogging is a career. I'm going to tell you what I just told a whole group of bloggers last weekend at a blogging conference. You're probably, if you just want to blog, you're probably not going to make enough money to survive. Sorry to tell you that. But the people who do blog here, I'm looking at Lisa here too, she's a blogger. We do a lot of different stuff to survive. So it's not just, you're not just going to write a blog and decide to, make enough income to continue traveling and survive. There are some people that can, just know that is the small percentage, okay? So you have to be willing to do other stuff too. I think the big thing is when you look at this, if you want to start blogging, is figure out what your goal is. Do you want to make money? Do you want to reduce expenses? Normally it's a little combination of both. Is it just for fun? If you want to make money, you have to run this like a business. It is a business. So that's one thing to know, and we've run whole courses on kind of how to set that up before. Very important to develop a niche. When I started 8 years ago, niches didn't matter. I just wrote about traveling around the world. Now it matters because there's so much noise out there. You either have to be a really great writer to be heard, or you need a niche. Plus, it just helps businesses understand who they want to work with, right? Because now, when I started, it didn't care because no businesses were working with us. Destinations didn't care about people writing blogs. Now they do. All those budgets have switched over from print into more digital now. And so now, most of my day, if I'm really blogging, I'm making deals with destinations and businesses and brands and stuff like that. So it has to be very business focused. And if you have a niche, it really helps narrow down how they work with you and who you're going to go work with. Start your blogging plan and content before you go. I always recommend that. It's kind of nice, especially if you're going to blog about like your around the world journey or something. Like start it at the beginning because you're going to change and it's pretty cool to watch. Join blogging groups and communities if you're really serious about it. Bloghouse is one that Lisa and I are involved in, and then which is just like a little 3-day workshop. Travel Blog Success is an online community, which is just awesome. They also have like a Facebook group, regular speakers that come out on webinars, etc. You're going to have to be, if you're going to want to blog for money, you got to be prepared to pitch. And even if you want to blog for free trips, you got to be prepared to pitch. So there is an absolute business element to this. When I say pitch, like I've got to call up ex officio clothing and say, hey, I've got this great idea. Here's who I am. Here's my media kit. And who can I talk to about how I can help you achieve your goals in social media or whatever. I mean, it's business. That's actually one of the things I love about it. And also know, you don't have to do a travel blog. You could do any kind of blog. It could be a blog about beer, whatever. So, just because you're traveling and you want to blog doesn't mean that it has to be about travel. So, okay, a couple things. Working while moving. So kind of this idea of being location independent. So outside of blogging and teaching, just here's some other types of jobs that are conducive to working while moving around the globe. Freelance writing, social media like marketing, graphic design, website, house sitting, boat crewing, personal assistant. All of this stuff can, well, probably not the boating crew can't be done virtually, but lots of it can. I think the biggest thing to know is that if you want to work while you're moving around, being really location independent, you've got to make time to do that. You have to move slow. For me, my rule that I try to adhere to and never do, unfortunately, is one day on, one day off. So if I'm going to go out and hike around Machu Picchu, then the next day I need to stay inside my ugly little hostel or my ugly little guest room and sit and work, editing photos, writing notes, getting back to people on emails, etc., or doing whatever work that is, web design or whatever. So you have to set time aside for that. Otherwise, you're going to drive yourself crazy. So plan for your work time intermixed with sightseeing, definitely. You're also probably going to be dependent on connectivity, so keep that in mind. It's a big thing, especially with lots of these jobs, right? So where you are is good. You're going to have to plan when you're offline. I do a lot of hiking remotely, and so I have to, it takes a lot of work to plan to be offline in my life. So you do need to plan on this stuff. As far as connectivity, we didn't get to show it, but I actually use MiFi devices all around the world. And in fact, we're going to be doing a giveaway with one at the end of the day. It's basically just a small like Wi-Fi. It emits a signal. It's used off the cell phones systems all around the world. You can get them that are country specific or more global. And you pay normally a daily rate or a monthly rate. But it guarantees, because for me, it's very important for me that I have that connectivity all the time. So it's the thing that I've used that gets it as close as I can to all the time. You know, you're going to have to use your unique skills. And this is where you're going to have to be a little bit creative sometimes. You might not think they're worth much, but sometimes they're really in demand, and especially depending on where you go. You know, so you're a yoga addict here. You know what? Maybe in Cambodia, you can teach yoga classes. You probably can. So there's things like that. The hair cutting. You want to cut, you know how to cut hair? Great, put up a sign in the hostel. You'll probably have people lined up, right? So there are things, massage, bartending, teaching music. Maybe you play an instrument. Sailing, translate menus. I don't know if you do travel and you see horribly translated menus or websites and stuff like that, like you can work in the tourism industry and pitch out like helping people out for X amount per hour or whatever, right? So you're gonna have to be a little bit inventive. Sometimes the most normal things can actually, you know, things that you think are just normal things that you're just okay at, like, yeah, I can read a menu, can turn into a job. So if you have a background in web services, design, programming, anything tech, you'll want to check out Elance probably. It's a great way to find virtual work that you can complete as you travel. You just put yourself on there, take jobs as you go. So another option. Then the other piece, working in one place, standing still, living as an expat. I've done that too. I did that for a year in Vietnam. These kind of jobs are typically more like teaching at international schools. If any of you are teachers or even have an advanced degree, sometimes you can get on at international schools, and it is a sweet gig. Much nicer than teaching ESL. Much better pay. They take care of you. They move you around the world, and there's a whole like network of international schools all around the world. So, and there's like international job fairs and stuff like that to work at the schools, even like social workers, like all that kind of stuff. So, you know, maybe you have a degree that you could actually look into something like that. Fitness, go start boot camps somewhere in the world, wherever you decide to live, in Bangkok or whatever. You can do business, marketing, ESL, translation, photography, website management, media marketing, tourism industry. You know, because we're always traveling, you find a lot of things that you can probably do for small businesses in tourism. Whether that's running their Facebook pages or helping them with their website or their marketing material and stuff like that. Now, how do you find these opportunities when you're an expat? Networking. It's so easy, but you gotta go out and meet people, you really do. When I moved to Vietnam, I got involved with the embassy and the consulate, and they threw happy hours. And I met people, every time I went to one of those happy hours, I had job offers, and I wasn't even looking for a job. I mean, they were just so desperate for people with like advanced degrees or business experience. Very much it depends on where you decide you're gonna wanna go and live as an expat. If you wanna go to France, I'm gonna tell you, it's gonna be a little bit harder. You wanna go to Cambodia, Vietnam, Indonesia, Peru, you're gonna have a lot of opportunities. So you do have to think about that and be realistic. Internations is a really big website and organization all around the world. It aims at making life easier for expats. They have meetups all around the world. There's information on living in all these different cities. It's a wealth of information. Also, so something like that's good to join. Smaller location-specific groups. When I lived in Vietnam, there was an Australian group, a New Zealand group. You know, like once you start to kind of get involved with the rest of the expats, you'll be amazed at what opportunities like come up, and they start to know your background. You'll get calls. I did house sitting, I did photography for people, you know, and I would have never even called myself a photographer, but sure, I can go do that. The main thing too is think about, when it comes to networking, do things you love. When I lived in Vietnam, I decided, hey, I want to learn how to dance. So I got involved in the swing dancing community there, and it was a mix of locals and expats. It was really fun. Same with photography. I like photography, so I looked up and there was a photography enthusiast group, so I joined that, and I met all kinds of people that way, locals and expats, and you make those connections and jobs come your way, opportunities come your way. I guarantee it. Some tips. Sometimes it's easier to show up somewhere and then find work. And I know that is a huge leap of faith for people. Huge, I understand that. When I went to Vietnam, I secured a job at first. And I did that. And it took me 3 months before I left that job and went out on my own because I had made all these other connections that I could make way better money. If you have the guts to do it, I highly recommend, if you want to go live as an expat somewhere, go plop yourself down there and start networking. You will find work. Like I said, it does depend a little bit on the location you want to go to. So do keep that in mind. You have to be realistic. Location matters. Like I said, if you want to teach yoga in Europe, maybe a little bit harder than in Indonesia. Good to know the work visa rules. Here's a good website. Once again, Europe, it's going to be much harder. You've got to be aware of the work visa rules. Asia, there's a lot of gray area. I worked there on a tourist visa for a year and just kept on renewing it. Not always like that. The world is changing. It's locking down a little bit. But still, so go on there, know your work permits. This is a great list. This is going to be in the resources, the best cities to live and work. They're rated by digital nomads, basically, about internet connectivity, cost, air quality, which is a big issue, time zone and flight time. I would suggest that if you're going to live as an expat somewhere, try to learn the language. You'll get much further. I didn't learn Vietnamese, but I did learn how to ride a motorbike, which was also a big piece of like getting into the culture and being accepted, I have to admit. It was easier for the motorbike. Make friends quickly for your own sanity. Being an expat is not always easy. It looks very glamorous, but I will guarantee be prepared for bouts of super loneliness too. I will admit, when I got there, I was a very seasoned traveler, and in 2008, had there not been a major crisis back here going on, right, I probably would have come back. But my thought was, I'm like, well, what am I going to do if I come back to the US in 2008, 2009? I might as well stick it out here. I mean, I'm not making much money, but it doesn't cost anything either. And there's nothing going on back there that I need to be at. So it kept me there, and I was fine. I just needed to get over that hump of a few months, basically. For people who are a little bit younger than me, you might want to check out working holiday visas. Some of these countries have them. Normally for 18 to 30-year-olds, somewhere around there. Here's a good resource list of countries who actually allow that, so you can go to the country, get a working visa, be a barista, whatever. I know Lisa was a barista even without that, right, in Australia?
I was an illegal immigrant.
Yep. Lisa's someone really great to talk to, too, after this, because she's worked all over, right? Doing all kinds of crazy jobs. You know, I think some things to ask yourself when you start down this road is, are you looking for a job or a career, right? Career, you might approach things a little bit differently. Job, you're going to be scrappy. You're going to go out and take whatever you can. You're going to be a barista illegally. and you're going to have fun. You're going to meet all these people. You're going to get really local. I mean, you got to figure out what you really want. If you want a career, maybe you do the Doctors with Borders or something like that. Like, you know, think about it. Be true to yourself. Ask yourself that question. And also kind of ask yourself, really, how much do you need to be happy? What I needed to be happy here in New York is very different than what I need to be happy on the road. So, you know, be realistic. I didn't need much in Vietnam to be happy. Things were cheap, too. But just, you know, so don't like get hung up on like, oh my God, I have to have this job that is, you know, high-powered and whatever, because that's how, you know, us New Yorkers are going to think. Instead, I quit that high-powered job and I went to go teach English in Vietnam, and I think I made $14 an hour, and that was just teaching time, not the preparation time. And I had a cleaning lady. I lived like a queen. I had my own motorbike, and I ended up doing a whole bunch of other jobs too. But when I went off, just to give you an idea, when I went off on my own and started doing the business English, I was charging $30 an hour, which is filthy rich in Vietnam. So just to give you an idea, that may be the end. Yeah. I have no idea if we have time for questions. I think we're kind of late, but yeah.
I just want to add the cruise ship opportunity. I worked
Oh.
on a cruise ship. That's also
You're right.
We prepared to work 10 to 12 hour days, 7 days a week for a 6-month contract. But then when you come back, that's your career. You come back and you completely low. But it's an opportunity, and you can meet a lot of people.
Yeah.
See the world that way too.
Yeah. So it's work.
I was in the Mediterranean, and I had never been to Italy or Montenegro or Slovenia or anything like that. So that's an opportunity.
So if you don't get seasick like I do, cruise ship opportunities are great. No, but there's a lot of people I know that started doing that too. One more?
For the ESL, do you usually have to stay in one place for a while? How long?
Depends. You know, if you do like tutoring and stuff like that, no, you can go and you can do whatever you want. I originally signed a contract at a school in Vietnam, and I had a year-long contract. Like but that was also me thinking I needed to lock this in before I went because I was so nervous about just winging it. And then I got there and went, oh, I don't need to do this. I can do my other stuff. They actually let me out of that contract because I agreed to substitute teach whenever they needed me. So, but yeah, so sometimes it is a contract, 6 months, a year, whatever, which is fine.
And also for the ESL, you know, I mean, people asked a couple of times, do you need the certification? The answer is, I'm not sure, is it like just better to have it, it's easier to get a job?
Well, like anything, it's kind of like, do you need to go to grad school these days? Well, now everyone's starting to do it, so you kind of feel like you have to. But there's more people out there teaching ESL now. The more competition there is, it's better to have certification, that's what I would say. It depends on your comfort level. You could pop yourself down. I mean, you're not going to get a job most likely in Europe without certification. Other parts of the world, potentially. Plop yourself down there and start to network. But for me, it was important to have it. Plus, it's an added benefit of something to put on my resume, right? I mean, it shows that like I was committed, I learned this, I've done this. It's just another thing to put on my resume, honestly.
I was going to add to that, since I've taught also, for example, you can take the in-person course, it's a 4-week course with a TESOL.
Yeah.
And then take the course in Prague and live in Prague
Yeah.
for like 4 weeks. Travel around Europe for a while, and then when you get the certification, they may want to place you in Prague, if the schools do.
Yep.
Or you can take off to Asia. So
Yeah.
you've actually done
Yeah, you don't have to.
And so in one bowl, you've actually seen.
You're right. Yeah, so the certification doesn't have to take place here. That's an important thing to know. There's a lot of different places you can do it, and you're there living in another country while you're doing it. It's fun. You're, got a month or so of expat living. Thank you.